beyond the thunder and lightning, past the clouds, over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star. Opened the earth, walking with blood-soaked feet. She challenged the whip, the gun, the knife. She challenged the fire, pulled from the bodies of slaves, made into laws, prisons, and courts.
Greetings. Welcome back as always, and thank you all so much for joining me today. Dave DeCamp at antiwar.com reports UN Security Council adopts resolution placing Gaza under control of U.S.-led board. Hamas rejected the resolution and said any international force that tries to disarm the group will become a party to the conflict. What's really behind all of this subterfuge? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each program, my guests and I provide insight and analysis. We connect the dots between the current events and the broader historic context in which they occur. Let's take a look at a couple of today's headlines. Trump defends Saudi crown prince over Khashoggi killing. The de facto Saudi ruler, Mohammed bin Salman, also known as Mohammed Bonesaw, was branded an outcast after the 2018 killing of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. Now, U.S.-Saudi relations are approaching a high point. Trump yesterday defended Salman over the killing of Washington Post columnist Khashoggi, saying things happen, and that he did not hold the Saudi leader responsible for the 2018 murder, despite the United States Central Intelligence Agency reporting the opposite. Let's run a little video from a press conference at the White House yesterday.
Family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president, is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office. Why should Americans trust you? And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news. ABC fake news. One of the worst in the business. But I'll answer your question.
Thank you.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful. And I've made America more successful by far than it ever was, and that it ever could have been, no matter who was president. There would be nobody bringing in $21 trillion, that I can tell you right now. As far as this gentleman is concerned, he's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen, but he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass.
Okay. Oh, boy. Okay. So, next story. Could Iran's Khomeini feel threatened enough to strike Israel? Now, listen to this. Since the end of the 12-day war between Israel and Iran in June, the Islamic Republic's leadership has repeatedly sent the message that the ceasefire with Israel is little more than a brief reprieve to be resumed at a later date. Ayatollah Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran, set the tone in mid-July, warning that Iran remained fully prepared for renewed confrontation and could hit Israel, quote, even harder than during the 12-day war should hostilities resume. The tenor of this is Iran is making threats. That's the message that one takes away from reading that story, as opposed to understanding that Iran is merely letting the United States and Israel know, if you make the same mistake again, the outcome will be even worse for you than it was the first time. That's the message that should be taken away from that story. The issue before us today, the 15-member Security Council passed the resolution with 13 voting in favor and none voting against. Russia and China abstained from voting, choosing not to use their veto power to stop the resolution. Ahead of the vote, U.S. Ambassador to the UN Mike Waltz warned that a vote against the resolution was a return to war, end quote. The resolution endorses the 20-point Israeli plan released by the White House on September. But the question, I think, is really whose interests are being served here? My guest is an award-winning journalist and activist who is based in Beirut, Lebanon. He's the creator of Free Palestine TV. Laith Marouf, as always, my brother. Welcome back.
Great to be with you, Wilmer. Thank you for having me.
So the resolution states that the Security Council welcomes the establishment of the Board of Peace, which will be headed by Trump. It describes the board as a, quote, transitional administration with international legal personality that will set the framework and coordinating funding for the redevelopment of Gaza, pursuing to the comprehensive plan. Laith, that's an awful lot of gibberish. What does this say to you?
Well, this is the final nail in the coffin of the international law and international governance structures that were set up after World War II. We're back to the moment of World War I. Psychos-Pico itself collapsed with the direct occupations and attempts to change borders that we're seeing right now. And all the international law that was written after World War II does not exist. You can commit genocide, you can outright occupy, you can invade any countries you want to. This is the facts that we have seen since October 7th. And now we see the United States, the Zionist empire, whether it's governed from DC or Tel Aviv, that's up to debate, has now forced itself to have a direct mandate, colonial rule over parts of Palestine, Gaza, and there will be a force of occupation coming from this, imperial colonial rule. And so this is where we are. We're at the point just before the outbreak of World War I, and everything's up in the air. And I think everybody around the world should conduct themselves understanding this. And the other thing that we just understood from this Security Council vote is that Russia and China will not be helping any peoples to decolonize, and will not face off or supply peoples that are resisting colonialism being re-implemented either in Africa, Latin America, or in Asia. This is the final confirmation, as we saw with Russia selling out Syria just a year ago and giving it to the Wahhabi death squads in exchange for we don't know what. And now we see China not only also refusing to use its veto, but also winning the bid to reconstruct the Zionist colony, not to reconstruct Gaza. China will be reconstructing all the destruction that happened from the axis of resistance over the last 2 years in these wars that include the 12-day war with Iran. So now we have a clear example of that multipolarity is just talk. This new multiple polar world doesn't exist, and that people that are seeking decolonization, true decolonizations, that have been trying to achieve it since the end of World War II, are now left alone. It's a day that is worse than after World War II, when there was a Soviet Union that could supply you with weapons and fight the empire with you in your battles. No, Russia and China will do business with the Wahhabi kingdoms that right now we saw with Trump, his good house Arab that's sitting beside him. Those are the same business partners of both Russia and China. So this is the new reality that everybody needs to admit it, that wants to actually achieve liberation and anti-imperialism in reality. So only Iran is ready for that reality, as we see with their ability to build their own military power to deter the empire from attacking it. As we saw even then in that 12-day war, neither Russia or China came to help Iran. They'll sell weapons to the Saudis and the Turks. Russia will give its S-500s to the Turks and build nuclear reactors with the Saudis, but they will not do the same with Iran.
This piece also states that the UN resolution says that this so-called Board of Peace will remain the authority in Gaza until the Palestine Authority, quote, has satisfactorily completed its reform program, end quote, though Netanyahu has rejected the idea of the authority having a role in Gaza, whether the authority has, quote, reformed, end quote, enough to take over in Gaza would likely be up to the U.S. and Israel. A couple of things here. One, the unilateral declaration that the Board of Peace is now the authority in Gaza. And what is this reform program that the Palestine Authority is supposed to be following or adhering to, or what is that?
Look, just to be clear, although this is put now in writing, it has been the dream of the Palestinian people to fight the head of the snake directly. You know, it's been 100 years that we fought every component of the empire. Now it's been, we're ready to see American soldiers die in Gaza. That's what we want to see. Let's see if the United States can do better than the UK and Israel and all their Wahhabi death squads and their liberal class that's with them, can they do it? The truth of the matter, the United States has been using all its capacity as an empire over the last 2 years because the Zionist colony has been defeated on October 7th. And if the hordes of the empire didn't arrive on those 88 naval ships on the shores of Palestine and Lebanon to stop the collapse of the Zionist colony, it wouldn't exist today. And since then, every mercenary force has been on the ground fighting the Palestinians inside Gaza for 2 years, including special forces from the Emirates, from the United States, from the UK, from Canada, and every mercenary group that you can imagine, including ISIS, as we saw openly, the Israelis funding them and pushing them in Gaza. And the United States has used, and the whole imperial components used all their military and intelligence and surveillance and space control to try to defeat the Palestinians in Gaza, and they haven't been able to. So there's nothing that's going to really change. The war is continuing. There is nothing left for the empire to use except nuclear weapons, and they've used, I think, 10 equivalents of Hiroshimas on Gaza and still haven't been, the Palestinians didn't surrender, and we will not surrender. We will take down the empire with us, and we'll take the world, and we have exposed already all power structures in the world, including the fake multipolarity, as we see as the latest casualty of the delusions that have set in human minds over the decades, including lately. We saw the collapse of the idea of democracy and human rights and no genocide and international law and international organizations and Western democracy and civility and civilization. All of that collapsed over the last 3 years, and now finally people are understanding the reality. So the Palestinians are not going to surrender, even if all the house slaves of the Arabic and Muslim world and Africa and the world say yes to the emperor. We will stand against the empire.
So while so much attention has been focused on the atrocities in Gaza, we also know that the West Bank has been under siege. And there's a story in the Times of Israel. Israeli security officials say settler violence has West Bank on the, quote, brink of explosion, end quote. Israeli security officials told Haaretz for a story published yesterday that Jewish settler violence in the West Bank has the Palestinian territory on the, quote, brink of explosion, end quote, as attack on Palestinians continues to surge. The report said that the authority of the IDF over settlers has eroded as the settlers have the backing of ministers in the Israeli government and members of the Knesset. That particular statement, to me, is a bit misleading because it's as though the IDF is operating as a separate entity, when in fact, from all I've been able to discern, the IDF is operating at the behest of these ministers. But help me out here, Laith Marouf.
Yeah, obviously, everything that's happening in the West Bank is part of state-planned crimes. And these settlers, colonists in the West Bank are the ones that served in Gaza and now have returned. And they walk with their own military protection around them of individuals that served in their same battalions that were in Gaza. And they're committing ethnic cleansing and pogroms in the Palestinian villages, especially in the Jordan Valley. There's practically no Palestinian villages left now, other than the main city of Jericho, Ariha. the villages in the Jordan Valley have been ethnically cleansed over the last 2 years. And what we see intensification around Hebron, Al-Khalil, even inside the downtown or core of the old city, where Palestinians are being forcefully expelled, like their homes set on fire to get them out. So this is all part of the genocide that now has been approved through even a Security Council, a guarantee that the empire will fight on behalf of the Zionist colony that cannot sustain itself. So why would they stop from genociding in the West Bank as they did in Gaza? Especially that the Palestinian Authority or non-authority is ruled by this house slave, Mahmoud Abbas, that sat purposefully and watched leadership of the Palestinian resistance being killed, and now is offering himself as a ruler over Gaza and a guarantor of disarming the Palestinian resistance. This is, by the way, of course, the Palestinian Authority doesn't have the capability, and all its security forces are treacherous, thugs, stupid. It's not the best of the society that goes and becomes treasonous, right? Usually. Mm-hmm. So there's no way the Palestinian Authority can achieve what they want them to achieve in Gaza.
Man, well, okay. Going back to one of the stories that I discussed in the intro, could Khomeini feel threatened enough to strike Israel? And again, since the end of the 12-day war, the Islamic Republic's leadership has repeatedly sent out the message that the ceasefire is little more than a brief reprieve. Well, that's not some threat. That, I think, is an accurate assessment that since the so-called ceasefire, they're still firing, and Gazans are still being murdered, and they're still being starved, and the genocide continues. So I again, that was the times of Israel with that story. And so I even had to say to my students today, this is why it's important to always be an incredibly discerning reader. And you have to ask yourself, what's really the message being sent in stories like this? Because I don't know, and as I said at the top, I don't know that Khomeini is threatening anybody. I think he's being very, very clear in letting people know, you took a whooping the first time, and you'll take an even worse whooping if you decide to strike a second time.
Yes, definitely. And because we see the also quote unquote ceasefire in Lebanon, meaning that the Zionists attack every day.
They struck today, didn't they?
Yes. I mean, I spent the whole day filming in the South, and I drove back for this interview. Yesterday they attacked the refugee camp in Saida, Ain al-Hilwa refugee camp, and they attacked an indoor soccer field, football field, killing 16 young men and youth that were at the gym playing. Basically, there's nobody who's, and they claimed that this was Hamas Palestinian resistance inside the refugee camp in Lebanon. And this morning, they over the whole day they attacked 6 different locations, different villages, and they claimed that these houses are Hezbollah hideouts for weapons and so on. And we went because they put them on the map and whatever. So we went and filmed from afar, and clearly there was no secondary explosions in any of the locations that we filmed. And that showed you that these were all homes and or businesses. There was even a coffee shop, a clothing store, homes that were attacked in different villages in the south. So this is the ceasefire in Lebanon. And so why would Iran think that the Israelis will not attack them as they wish where there's a ceasefire. And the United States is saying it will not guarantee any ceasefire in Lebanon. It's pressuring the Lebanese government, and the Lebanese government is refusing to have a civil war. And as we see what happened in Gaza, there's direct colonial imperialist rule being proposed of Gaza. It's not going to come into effect, but because they can't achieve it. And this is all happening in the context of the United States amassing its navy to attack Venezuela. So of course Iran knows the war is going to come back to it any time, any moment, because the Zionists and the imperialists are backstabbers.
You mentioned Venezuela, and I might have been Gerald Horn that I had, Dr. Gerald Horn, that was with me yesterday, and I asked him, as we look at this escalation of rhetoric, jingoistic rhetoric towards Venezuela, does the United States really think that it can fight wars on 3 fronts? 1, Ukraine, 2, Gaza/Iran, and 3, Venezuela? That just really seems to be imperialist overreach. And we know history tells us that that's what exacerbates the demise of the empire.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, as we see, this is part of the empire trying to assert itself. You know, all of this genocide and non-ending war and extreme right rise is because of the fear that the imperial elites have of the collapse of the empire. They know the curse of the 3rd generation that Ibn Khaldun, the philosopher, told us about, and the rise and fall of dynasties, states, and empires, where by the 3rd generation, the empire starts decaying, whether it's the culture being so inward about feelings and sexualization and so forth, and or the elite being so selfish and detached from the working class of the empire. And you see that manifesting in the United States, even in the race between Biden and Trump. That's a clear indication of senility, both candidates being senile, and both of them being drugged pedophiles, both of them, right? So this is the indications of the collapse. So what we see the empire trying to do with this reinvigoration of masculinity, and or remember Hextus standing in front of his own generals, calling them all gay and trans, basically. That's the attempt to break the curse of the 3rd generation, of the collapse of the empire. And since October 7th, the empire has been trying to find a win. And it didn't find it in Gaza, it didn't find it in Lebanon, it didn't find it in Yemen, it didn't find it in Iran. So it's like running and getting thirsty for this win. And because every time it doesn't win, it only reasserts the beginning of the collapse, or accelerates the collapse, actually. And this is why they're just punching to the air everywhere.
There was another interesting story. Trump thought Gulf monarchs would rebuild Gaza. Then he told them his plan. The numbers tell a story of devastation. The UN says that at least 69% of all buildings in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed. 94% of hospitals, with almost half of them closed. 89% of schools, all 12 universities, 92% of the electricity grid, 70% of water and sewage plants, 79% of mosques. The World Bank and the UN have put the reconstruction costs about $70 billion, and Trump thought that the Gulf monarchies would give a large part of this reconstruction. And now he's finding out that's not going to happen. What do you see here going forward?
Look, this is now 100 years war, more than 100 years. It's actually the century of Arab humiliation, if people want to understand it in a better way, because the whole Arabic people have been pounded over the last 100 years just to ensure the existence of this colony and the submission of the Arabic people. And unfortunately, with the fall of Syria, now the house slave Arabic leaders can unashamedly stand up and say, we demand that you colonize Palestine as America, and that you come in with your troops to occupy it and to punish those Palestinians, that pesky Palestinian resistance people that have refused the dictates of the Arab monarchies that have been installed by the colonizer and protected by him for the last 100 years. So today, like, there is just 3 Arabic countries that are still contested, where the United States is not in full control and has vassals installed. And those are Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen, and they're half occupied, the 3 of them. But it's still contested, and now these Gulf vassals and monarch vassals and dictators vassals will do what they're told. But also, everybody has to understand that all this money of the Gulf countries for the last 100 years wasn't really in their pockets. MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, is on the Epstein files, wanting to send Epstein an Arab tent, Bedouin tent, for their Orientalist orgies with children, right? This is part of the, all these elites are drug-ridden, alcoholics, pedophiles, and have been inbred by the imperial controllers for the last 100 years. You know, and people can read the books from those who lived amongst the Saud family in the 1800s, American and British spies. The books are all there if people want to read them. So the money of the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Qataris was going to rebuild Gaza whether they like it or not, if they rebuild Gaza. But I don't think they're going to rebuild Gaza, because the war is not over, and the Palestinians haven't submitted, and the Lebanese people haven't submitted, and the Iraqis haven't submitted, and the Yemenis haven't submitted, and this war is going to continue. In fact, the money of these Gulf countries is the one that is supplying the weapons for the Israelis, for the Zionists, and is propping the economy of the United States for the last 80 years, since the 1940s. You know, the petrodollar is really what inflates the American economy. And that means that all the Arabic oil, and now with Syria's oil gone, taken by the Americans, and Libya's, and Yemen's, and Iraq's, it is inflating the American economy artificially. The Arabic people have never seen actually the benefits of this oil and gas.
So you just mentioned Yemen, and with that, of course, an Ansar Allah. And in the West, we haven't really heard a lot of or from them, I think primarily because we've been distracted with the Epstein files and the shutdown of the government. What have they been quiet? What have they been sending missiles in? What has Ansar Allah been doing over the last month or so? And what's your take on what their plans are and where they're headed?
Yeah, I mean, there's threats by the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Israelis. There is a possibility that there will be again a trigger of the land invasion possibilities by the mercenaries that the Saudis and the Emiratis can purchase on the black market. But what's going to change? Again, I think this is why we see Trump running to try his luck in Venezuela, because they tried to invade Yemen and destroy the Sana'a government and occupy it for 15 years. And they were not able. All the vassals of the United States, with the help of the British and the Americans and the Israelis, plus the direct war that we saw and American naval engagement with Yemen, which was the worst performance of the American Navy since World War II. They told us this was the scariest naval battle, and they had to fight it with a country that doesn't have a navy, Yemen, with their hypersonic missiles, their cruise missiles, and their drones. They chased away all the aircraft carriers of the United States, the UK, and France. This is a huge achievement. So let's hope, by the way, Venezuela performs as good as the Yemeni army. And if Venezuela does perform this way, I think the United States will feel obliged to go into full-scale war, because if the United States cannot project any more power into the Caribbean, Central America, and South America, it's checkmate.
So what do you make of bin Salman's meeting with Trump? Why do you think he came? Why do you think he came now? And he was sitting there promising $1 trillion investment. It sounds as though bin Salman knows what so many other world leaders know, and that is how to make Trump happy, distract him with shiny trinkets, and you'll be his new best friend.
Definitely, that's part of it. The other part is truly, again, all the money of the Saudis is in American banks. All of it.
Mm-hmm.
The United States can do whatever it wants to with that money at any moment, and it does. So saying that the Saudis are going to invest $1 trillion is saying that they're investing what's already there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's part of a media game. What is, I think, the visit, well, what's more important about it, if we want to look at the psychological work that they're, propaganda that they're trying to do, or the psychological warfare that the empire is trying to do. They've just destroyed Syria. There's no more central Arabic country with the fall of Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo. Those three are the three civilization capitals of the Arabic people. With the fall of the three of them into full American control, now the Saudi king is being brought as the leader of the Arabs. That show that they did in front of the White House was all about that. And it's not even directed, by the way, to the American audience. This is directed at the Arabic peoples, because it was broadcasted on all the Gulf channels live, all of this charade.
Okay.
It's a parade of victory over the Syrian unificationist, Arabic unificationist, liberationist thought that for the last 100 years that fought this good fight. And we saw the fall of Damascus, and now it's ruled by the Wahhabi death squads that are centered in Saudi Arabia. So Saudi now has full control in its mind of the Arabic world on behalf of the empire. And that was the parade that we saw in front of the White House.
Well, in fact, we need, I think, to take a step back a week to where al-Jilani just left. The head chopper in Syria, al-Jilani, left. And now you bring in the head chopper in Saudi, and Prince Bonesaw. The United States is, through the Trump administration, is forming some alliances. I don't know how these things wind up holding together, because whether al-Jilani goes the way of what's his name in Iraq Iraq
Al-Baghdadi.
Huh?
Al-Baghdadi.
No, before him. In
Al-Zarqawi.
Who the president, the former president of
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein. Thank you. It's been so long since I had to think about him.
Yeah.
What did Kissinger tell us? To be an American enemy is deadly. To be an American ally is lethal. What makes these guys think that these relationships and their life will, so man, it's a horrific parade of murderous individuals.
Yeah, and of course both the Zionist cult and the Wahhabi cult are the favorite enforcers of the empire for the last 100 years, specifically the British Empire that got swallowed up by the American Empire, and we don't know now, of course, if the capital is in Tel Aviv. But the point is here, this is the new world. The empire is willing to openly say we are thugs, we are colonialists, and we will genocide you, and we will ethnically cleanse you, and we will loot your resources openly, and we will do it with hateful propaganda openly. We will speak in these Nazi, Zionist, Wahhabi terms openly. And you don't like it, do something about it. That's literally what they're telling us. And that's what Trump, how he spoke to that journalist from ABC, telling her, shut the hell up, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And this man is great. Look, he has $1 trillion. Look at me, I'm the greatest. And we're all in the same pedophile files of Epstein, okay? And you stay away from my man. Look, Al-Jolani will not face the death of Saddam Hussein for one reason.
Okay.
Because Saddam Hussein actually did something that pissed off the empire. This man is a intelligence construct, and if you look at his foreign affairs minister of the HTS government in Damascus, he's basically al-Baghdadi, shaven, haircut, and tucked in. This just shows you how most probably also Osama bin Laden is not dead. They never showed us his body. Osama bin Laden was an agent of the empire. He probably shot all his videos not in Tora Bora, but in a studio in Hollywood, and he's walking amongst you guys dressed up as a hippie, right? So this is the reality. So Al-Jolani may disappear when the empire wants him to go, because his sole job right now is to make Syria so fractured that the schisms in the society are so severe that you can't put back the country together. Okay, that's his sole job. And so they may remove him at some point when he's done with his job of making the country into cantons that are ethnically and religiously homogeneous, because that's what Israel wants. Israel wants to justify its existence as a Jewish state by having the most multi-ethnic, multi-religious society in history, the greater Syria area, to be made into cantons.
Laith Marouf, my brother, as always, man, thank you so much for your time. You drove quite a distance to be with us today, and I truly appreciate it. And be safe, man. And as always, I look forward to having you back.
Thank you very much, Wilmer. See you next month, I guess, right?
If not sooner.
If not sooner.
Thanks, bro. Okay. Folks, we've seen this, just a couple things before we get out. We've seen this vote take place in the House relative to the Epstein files. And a couple of things. One, I want to be very clear. When I refer to this Epstein issue as a distraction, I am in no way trying to diminish the horrors that were inflicted on these victims. I refer to it as a distraction in the manner in which it is being used, not in any way, shape, or form to diminish the severity and the horror that has been imposed upon the victims. As we look at the passage of the bill coming out of the House and going to the Senate, and and we look at why has the president done the 180 from Saturday to Monday, and there, I'm sure, are many reasons behind it. One of which I think is somebody told the president, "You do realize, Mr. President, that so long as the so long as the Attorney General Pam Bondi says that there are ongoing investigations, that she then has the ability to hold off releasing documents. So you can flip the script and realize that you're really not putting yourself in nearly as much peril as you would think that you are." And so I think that went a very long way in convincing Donald Trump to change his tune. So for as elated as so many people were yesterday, standing on the steps of the Capitol as the vote took place, and everybody was so happy that not only the vote took place, but it went the manner in which it did, I really have to ask the question, to what end? And I hope I'm wrong. I on this one, I really hope I'm wrong. But again, one has to wonder to what end. Rampleson says, "What do you think, Dr. Leon? Will they release the files without redaction?" I wish I knew the answer to that. Let me try to answer it this way. As the file, if the files wind up being released, I don't think that people will get the answers to the questions that they're looking to have answered. Let me try to, hopefully that will hopefully that will be considered to be a good answer. So you'll wind up, as Fred Hampton once told us, with answers that don't answer, explanations that don't explain, and that's what I think we're going to wind up here. I think that's what we're going to wind up here, because there's, once you find out that Donald Trump has answers that don't answer, conclusions that don't conclude, and explanations that don't explain, that's what I think we will wind up with as a result of all of this back and forth as it relates to the release of the files. So redaction, sure. Unless they can find information in these files that does more damage to Democrats than it does to Donald Trump and to his cadre. Mike agreed, if the files contained only Democrats, they would have already been released. You're correct. that means there are dirty folks on the left and the right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And Mark, I think to your point, this is a demonstration of a point, of a larger point that I've been making for a very long time, and that is the danger of binary thinking. Because a lot of folks will, in talking about the left and the right, actually operate as though those are two disparate ideologies, when in fact I would submit, after the passage of the Citizens United case, where ungodly amounts of money have been able and allowed to flow in to both sides of the spectrum, they've been brought to one. They are two wings on the same bird. Hence the article I wrote a while ago, The Dangers of Binary Thinking for the African American Community. Because for us to think that we are actually given options here when we're really, really not. How did the Democrats have the files, or some of them, to release Ramplin's, I don't know how you pronounce that, so please forgive me. I would, if I understand the question, I don't think that what has been released actually came through the Democrats. What has been released up to this point, as far as I understand it, has come from the estate, the Epstein estate. Members of the Epstein estate have been, this last trove of emails where they say Donald Trump was mentioned over 1,000 times. I don't think it was I could be wrong on this. I don't think it was the Democrats that released it. That information was released from the Epstein estate. So that I think is important to understand. Lee Ricks, see the U.S. Virgin Islands rep, Plaskett, Representative Plaskett. Yeah, now that one is really is silly and pathetic at the same time. Here you have a member of the House, a non-voting member, but a member of the House, Plaskett, receiving text messages from Epstein while Cohen is being questioned, and apparently the information that Epstein is sending to Miss Plaskett is influencing the questions that she's asking Epstein. And then when she has to come before the House and answer the question, what was going on here, one of the first things she says is, well, he was a constituent of mine. What? Once again, answers that don't answer and conclusions that don't conclude. You couldn't make this stuff up. You couldn't make this stuff up. And if you look at the video of her at the microphone trying to explain, trying to answer the question, lady, what were you doing? You're in a House committee hearing questioning Michael Cohen, the president's fixer, and you're getting text messages from Jeffrey Epstein? How is that possible? Well, he was a constituent. So it's utterly foolish. Oh, the point I was going to make was, when you look at the video, I don't know who it is that's sitting behind her, but there's a woman, an African-American woman sitting behind her in a blue, like maybe a teal colored suit with her arms folded like that. And she's looking at her like, really? This is what you're going to say? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So again, to me, all of this begs the question. You finally got the petition out of the House. You will probably get it out of the Senate. It will go to the president's desk. And I think, understand that there may be modifications between what comes out of the Senate and what came out of the House. And I think both of those, if the same rules apply to this that apply to legislation, then the Senate and the House, they've got to meet in conference committee and of some sort, because what winds up going to the president has to be the same coming out of Stacy something is her name. Yeah, Stacy Plackett. Her last name is Plackett. And I'm sorry, it's Plaskett. Plaskett. Plaskett is how you pronounce her last name. Anyway, so again, it comes out of the House, it comes out of the Senate, it goes to the president's desk. He has committed to sign it, but what in fact have we won? What in fact will the end result be? I'll be incredibly, incredibly surprised if at the end of the day, the victims of all of this aren't victimized again. And what I mean by that is their hopes will be dashed because nothing substantive is going to be provided. As my dear late brother Gus Pelzer would say, it's all sizzle and no steak. That's unfortunately what I think is if you listen closely, she tells you her legal background explains exactly why her constituent could talk to her while before a congressional committee. I don't understand the point. I'm sorry. And O.L. Griffin, I'm not saying that to be dismissive. I don't understand the point. So if you can quickly send another message, because I don't know how to respond to that. Is because I don't understand the point. Because I listened to her explanation, and to me, the explanation made no sense. In fact, one of the things, let me see if I can quickly figure out, where did she go to school? I want to say she went to Howard. Let me see here. See if I can quickly tell you where she went to school. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. I'm quickly trying to see, because I thought somebody. Oh, okay. She went to Georgetown. Oh, she got her undergraduate. She got her undergrad from Georgetown, and she got her JD from American University. Okay, then somebody. It must have been the So is he? Oh, maybe it's the governor of the Virgin Islands that went to Howard. Okay, so you can go to C-SPAN and hear her explain her legal experience and why Epstein's advice was not necessary. I didn't make it. No. Oh, well, I'm not saying you did make it up. What I'm saying is I just don't understand your point. That's because I listened to her explanation, and the explanation to me still didn't make any sense. Because some of what she said, I interpreted as being subterfuge. She was explaining why Epstein's advice wasn't necessary, but that's not the point. Whether Epstein's advice was necessary or not necessary, the question before us is, why during a committee hearing, while you are talking to Michael Cohen, are you getting text messages from a known pedophile named Jeffrey Epstein? Whether what he was telling you, oh, maybe your point has to do with the point that was said was that some of the information he was providing her was influencing her questions. If that's your point, okay, I get it. And she had a well-established personal correspondence with Epstein long before the meeting. So that could very well be even more damning. You had this long-established relationship with a known pedophile. So anyway, I'm not defending it, and I'm not accusing it. I'm just trying to explain it, and I'm highlighting it as an interesting issue. It's going to be what it's going to be. So anyway, with all of that, thank you as always for listening. Thank you for your input. And again, I was just trying to understand what your point was. Now I do, and we'll see where it all goes. Thanks for listening. Hey, folks, as always, I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. Thank you, Laith Maroof, as always, my dear brother, for contributing to the program. New episode tomorrow, and we're going to be joined by, Dr. Manu Ampim. We're going to be talking about what's going on in Sudan from an incredibly knowledgeable, reputable source. And we'll also get some insight into what's happening in Mali and Burkina Faso, what's happening with the alliance of Sahel states, and also Trump's threat. I think what he talking about, bombing the Congo? He talked about bombing? Anyway, so Dr. Manu Ampim is going to join us tomorrow. So with all of that, again, thank you all for listening. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Leave a review. Share the show description. Greatly appreciate it. And remember that this is where the history and culture and politics converge. Talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Have a blessed remainder of your day. I truly appreciate you all joining me today, and as always, listening and contributing to the program. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.